Hey there, if you are currently living paycheck to paycheck in your travel business because you don't know where your next client is going to come from, you likely have one of two problems, maybe even both, a traffic problem and a conversion problem. You see, a traffic problem refers to the amount of people coming to your website to learn more about working with you, which means that the conversion problem is when your website isn't turning your website visitors into email subscribers, appointments, or paying clients. If you have a traffic and or conversion problem, your travel business is not going to survive. And that's not okay. And guess who is very much to blame? Your website. You see, a high converting website in the travel industry should be turning website visitors into paying clients with ease. If your website is not doing that, it is failing you. But there is a solution. Introducing Website in a Weekend, a transformative 2-day virtual workshop tailor-made for travel professionals just like you. Arrive with nothing, leave with a breathtaking, high-converting website. Yep, just in a weekend. You'll equip yourself with a crystal clear core message, a stunning visual brand, content crafted with high converting frameworks, and so much more. Early bird alert! Sign up by September 20th and get your website copy written for you by my team. Plus, I will personally pick, pay for, and place premium images on your website. Dates, mark your calendar, October 27th and 28th. Y'all, October 28th is my wedding anniversary. Show up. I'll be there for you. It'll literally change your business. Still unsure? Just ask Lisa. She transformed her website from meh into magnificent. And she says, it was worth every penny. My site now speaks to those that I want to work with. I highly recommend it. Or ask Patty, who says, all thanks to you and your team, Sandra, I get so many compliments and new clients. I'm actually having a hard time keeping up with all the new bookings. So why wait? Elevate your online presence, attract ideal clients, and say goodbye to your website woes. Ready to soar? Join Website in a Weekend and let's make magic together. Head over to travelmarketingandmedia.com/website to learn more and book your spot. That's travelmarketingandmedia.com/website. I'll see you there.
So on today's podcast episode, I promised to you that I would find you travel advisors that have done something. We're not talking about done huge things, but they've done something that all of you at home are like, how did they do that? How did he or she get there? And I don't like to have huge conversations with my guests before we jump on and record because the nuggets come flying and we haven't even hit record. But Shanell and I just had a little bit of a chat and she was like, I haven't figured it all out. And I said, you don't need to have figured it out because today we're going to talk about what you did figure out because a ton of listeners, thousands of listeners are trying to figure out what Shanell has already figured out. So that being said, I'm so excited. And I don't know if she knows this, but she's actually my first guest ever on my podcast. No pressure, Shanell. But I'm going to be talking today to Shanell Varner. She's from Moonglade Travel and she's based in North Carolina. I am so excited because low-key, I have been stalking Shanell for a long time. We'd never met and never spoken until today, but I've been watching her in a very non-creepy way. And I had a look at her business and I have been watching her on social media and I've just really seen growth. And I thought, you know what? That growth that Shanell has had, I know that my listeners and our community out there really want to understand how she got from the bottom of the hill to partway up the hill. And she might not have it all figured out in her business, but she's definitely got a lot figured out and I know she can share it. So before we jump in, I do want to share with you a little bit about Moonglade Travel and then we'll talk to Shanell herself. So directly from her website, she says, Moonglade Travel is a luxury boutique travel company specializing in custom travel planning. We're passionate about creating experiences that foster learning, connection, and self-development. Our specialties include all-inclusive Caribbean vacations, romantic getaways, and our world-class women's wellness journeys. I about fell off my chair when I read this because I felt like I went from knowing nothing about her business to knowing everything about her business. And like a special kudos to Shanell for being able to clarify exactly who Moonglade Travel is and who they can help, because it's just super clear. I think if I was looking for a travel advisor and I found this on a website, I would know immediately if I was in the right place or not. So on this particular episode, she has done so much stuff, but I really want to focus on one area of her business, not little at all, but one area of her business. And that is her escorted trips for her 3 specialty areas that I just listed out. So those, if you didn't catch them, they were Caribbean vacations, romantic getaways, and their world-class women's wellness journeys. And I want to talk about these escorted group trips, or group trips, even if they're not escorted, because I think that it's the goal, hashtag travel advisor goal, to be able to have groups, because they fulfill a couple of needs. Number one, they allow you to generate more revenue than an individual or a couple. And number two, they allow you to smash some goals. Like, she's got serious goals there in her core message. And number three, they allow you to travel if you're escorting. And who doesn't like to travel? So in this episode, we're going to talk mostly about why Shanell started doing organized groups, what made her focus on groups, how she put together her first itinerary, how she markets and fills the groups, and any other details that she wants to share. So Shanell, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you, Sandra. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited.
Don't even be nervous, because all we're doing today is talking about the genius stuff that you have already done. So before we jump into the first question, go ahead and tell us and share with our audience, how long have you been into the travel industry and how did you arrive in it? Like, what made you want to jump in?
Absolutely. So we just celebrated 6 years in business last month, actually. So that was super exciting.
Yay!
We actually started, I don't know, it sounds cliche, but I love to travel, obviously. And before we got started, I would always have friends and family ask, hey, can you help me plan a trip here? Can you help me plan a trip here? And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's an opportunity to turn, passion into business opportunity. So we kind of married the two. But it really started for me. I went on a trip to Africa several years ago. And when I tell you it's transformational. And it really sparked something in me, because I wanted people to have that same experience that I had. I had friends that had never left their hometown or never been on an airplane. And I was like, oh no, I've got to get people in the world. There's so many things to see and experience. So I guess the combination of those things combined is how we started.
What did you do before you were in travel? Did you have some amazing corporate job? What did you do before that?
Yeah, corporate job, working in program management and a various like nonprofits and government entities. So it's very different as far as travel, but some of the same skill sets as far as organization and coordinating a variety of programs and, all that core stuff and tedious stuff that we do as travel advisors. So
yeah. And are you full-time in your travel business now, or are you still in the corporate world?
Nope, officially 1 year full-time.
That's like, I feel like that's a more serious anniversary than the day we started our businesses. Like, it's the moment that we finally just decided to lift our wings and move. And is your husband involved in your business? Whose husband isn't, though, I guess, like by force or by will? Whose husband isn't? But how is he involved?
Exactly. So he's unofficially my director of operations and my professional photographer. He's still in training after 6 years, but he does a great job. I think he enjoys more of the perks and benefits than more of the behind the scenes. But he's a great support in the business.
I feel you on that. My husband is my unofficial photographer, my unofficial videographer. He's his self-appointed director of creative. And he's also carry my suitcases, help me with my admin, quick set up my studio. He's all the things, but like your husband, he enjoys the perks and benefits that come with a wife in the travel industry.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's jump into our first question today. So your marketing, I'm going to have to tell everybody, it's extremely beautiful. It's very engaging, but most importantly, it's crystal clear. And you say in your about section that your specialties include all-inclusive Caribbean vacations, romantic getaways, and world-class women's wellness journeys. At what stage did you have that moment where you're like, these three? Like, was it something that you always knew in travel, those three, or could you not decide? Like, how did you arrive at that space where you said, that's what I'm going to niche in?
It probably happened about year one. year one. When I first started in 2016, I did all the things, which is I wouldn't advise anyone to do, and quickly learned that that is not the best method. So I really just kind of took inventory. Those are three of my favorite things. I love the Caribbean. I enjoy a nice all-inclusive. I love traveling with my husband, and I love wellness combined with travel. And then just the sisterhood that it creates when we go on our women's wellness journeys. So that's where I kind of honed in and created my focus on these are our areas of specialty because that's what's important to me. I know the benefits of them, and I'm really good at coordinating those types of experiences.
Yes, ma'am. And like with the specialty, have you sort of declared like, I will only do these three things? So if somebody comes to you with like, hey girl, I want to go Disney to Fort Lauderdale, do you do things that are not part of your niche, or how does that work? Are you like niche 100%?
Definitely niche 100%. I don't touch domestic. I don't touch Disney. Bless
You don't want to do my Spirit Airlines flight from LA to Atlanta?
Absolutely. Don't touch it. And it's funny, I had a couple of inquiries come in over the weekend, and it's quickly like, yes, no, yes, no. But yeah, I'm very clear about what our areas of specialty are. And I'm happy to say, hey, we're not a good fit, but here goes some resources or information to kind of get you started in planning that trip, or maybe refer them to another travel advisor that's in that niche.
How did that work though? Because like, I'm sure the listeners are thinking at home, I would love to only say yes to what I want and to say no to everyone else. But in the beginning, when you're starting out, you've got bills to pay. There's bills to pay, there's mouths to feed. And so was it something that you stayed in your full-time job and then didn't leave until you were profitable, which then allowed you to say no? Or how did that work?
Yeah, definitely. Same thing. When I first started, again, I would take any Disney, Miami, you name it, I did it. Cruises, I touch cruises now. But it was a process because like you said, when you're just getting started, you wanted all the things. I wanted to be everything to everybody, but I quickly got burnt out. I didn't enjoy some of the trips that I was planning, and they weren't lucrative. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So I guess for our listeners, if you're in the same situation where you really just want to be like Shanell and just stick to your niche, then there's obviously a decision and a commitment to that has to come, but balancing out your responsibilities. I noticed that you're currently marketing you're marketing 3 group trips right now. So one is a trip to Los Cabos, which is so crazy because I literally have shown it to my husband and been like, we should go with them. We had just come back from Los Cabos. We don't need to be in Los Cabos right now. We are too busy to go to Los Cabos, but because you market it so well, I feel like I need to go. But I noticed you're marketing this trip to Los Cabos. Then you have 2 other women's wellness trips this year. Tell me about what led you to do group trips as opposed to just marketing and waiting for the inquiries to come in and booking the individuals, the couples, or the groups. What made you say, hey, I'm going to do group trips?
So it started out with just the women's wellness journeys, and those were just exclusive trips for women. We would go away to a beautiful destination and truly just unplug and pour into ourselves. Because as you know, we're in multiple hats, we're everything to everybody. And it's not too often that we take a moment to just kind of hit the pause button and refuel. So I wanted to create these experiences for women because I know how important that is. So it started out, that's what it started out as our women's experiences. But then me and my husband travel together all the time. We know the benefits that traveling together has had on our relationship. So why not do a couples trip? So this looks a lot different from our women's wellness. And it's our very first, group trip outside of our traditional women's experiences. So I'm super excited.
Wow. And are you still booking individuals and you're still booking families and groups that come through that are in alignment with your niche, but these groups are in addition?
Correct.
Okay. And are the groups all escorted? Are you on all of these trips?
Absolutely.
Now I'm jealous because that means you're going to Cabo this year. Hubby gets to go and you've got definitely 2 women's groups. Tell me about, was there any fear in setting up that first group? Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put out there, it's just going to be me.
Oh, absolutely. It still is.
No.
Every time. So just a little history. When we started doing women's wellness journeys, this was probably in 2018. And our very first one was to Bali, and it was lavish. Oh, we were spending 9 days, hopping all over Bali, beautiful itinerary. And then I believe the volcano erupted. So we had to cancel.
Oh. Like we were taking off. I'll tell you when that was. It was 2017 because we were in Bali when it on the day that it erupted, leaving up from our honeymoon. So yeah, I remember we got the last flight out of the country before all flights were grounded. So I feel you on that. So you had this group.
Yeah, so that was our very first official women's wellness that we put together. But again, like I said, Bali, we had issues, we had to cancel it. So the one after that was we did a small group to Jamaica in I believe it was 2018. And putting myself out there has always been something that I ride on the fear fence on. Because of course you fear of rejection, fear nobody's gonna, believe in what you're doing. Nobody's gonna sign up, which is always something to be fearful of. But we worked. We took a group of maybe 8 women to Jamaica and had an amazing time. Forward, we did another trip to Colombia the next year, which was great. We tried to do Bali again, but then 2020 happened, so that didn't work. I don't know why the universe doesn't want me to go to Bali, but okay.
It wants you to diversify.
Right. I get it. And then last year, the retreat that we currently have, our first one for this year is going to Tulum. We actually leave on Thursday. But this was originally scheduled for last May. And Sandra, I put myself out there. We promoted the retreat heavy. I had 2 people sign up. So I had to, I could have gone with the 3 of them, but, I have a vision and I really wanted to see that through. So we decided to make a tough decision to push the date back and we're sold out. So everything's Aries.
Wait, so let's talk on that because I'm really curious and I think our listeners will be too. When you first sit down and you say, we're going to do Tulum, what is the first thing? I'm guessing it's the math first, the numbers that you crunch numbers that you figure out what your cost is going to be, what your profit's going to be, what the minimum participation is. Can you walk us through from ding, 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 Tulum to putting it out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's first, okay, what do we want the retreat to look like? And that usually kind of helps us decide where we're going. So we also have Costa Rica coming up later this year. And but this one is the Awakening Soul. And when I think of Costa Rica, I think of this awakening experience. You have the rainforest, you have amazing beaches. So I kind of have an idea of the theme. And that kind of helps me narrow down destination. Once I narrow down destination, I start to narrow down accommodations or resorts. Once I figure that out, it's like, okay, well, what else are we going to do? What type of activities? What type of programming? What type of, add-ons that we're going to have? And based on that, I start to create, okay, this is the agenda. This is the cost sheet. This is what it's going to take. This is how many people we need. On most of my women's wellness journeys, I have a co-host because I have a holistic approach to the retreat and I'm not all things. So for example, my retreat coming up in Tulum, it's a yoga and wellness focused retreat. I'm not a yoga instructor. I practice it all day, but I am not an instructor. So therefore I'll bring on a subject matter expert to be able to facilitate that portion of the retreat. So again, collaborating and partnering with them, what their cost is, what their role is. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Wow.
The full components and kind of once I get to that amount or once I get to that part, then it's like, okay, how many people do we need? What is the price point? We need to start marketing, setting the timeline. Who are our partners? Who are we going to collaborate? Where are we going to market and promote? So it's a really in-depth strategy and process that goes into it.
Do you have a minimum number of participants per trip? And what happens when you don't? And you kind of showed us what happened with Tulum, but what happens in the chance? And we don't want to put it out there because we don't want it to happen every time. We're moving towards that not happening, but it's obviously one of the risks that travel advisors take on when they say, you know what, I'm going to put together a group and I'm going to fill it myself. How do you figure out where that line is of minimum participation?
Yeah. Looking at total cost of the trip, it's like, okay, and also not just a minimum, but a max. I'm not looking for 20, 30, 40, 50 people. These are very and intentional groups. So we typically cap around 15, maybe 20, depending upon where we're going. So with that in mind, I usually try to look at a minimum of 10. But again, we have to price it that way. If I get 8, do we still go with 8, or do we really need the 2 additional participants to meet our goal to make sure that we walk out in the green and not the red?
Yeah. And do you have, how transparent are you about having to reach that minimum when you're selling it in the beginning?
Typically right up front, when we're promoting the retreat on our registration page, we're saying that, one, things may change as far as if we don't meet the minimum, it could potentially be canceled due to not meeting the minimum. We talk about our max and the different variations of the dates and payment options. So we're very transparent up front about that. And luckily, all of our clients have been very accommodating. The 2 that booked for the retreat last year were completely fine about being able to change the dates to January, which was awesome. So typically I don't have any issue, or I haven't, knock on wood, any challenges when it comes to that. And I think people are, so far I've seen that clients have been pretty okay and open with that as well.
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that you haven't had any problems today, because you're transparent and you're upfront. And I think that in life, we're used to any kind of group experience needing a minimum participation to run. Let's talk about how you market and promote these trips to not only fill them, but I'm also really interested in how you attract like-minded people, like-minded travelers. So how do you promote and market, and how do you attract like-minded people? And the reason I'm interested in the marketing part, obviously I'm interested in that, but the like-minded people, I went on our first group trip in January 12 months ago, and I have said no to every group trip ever that my friends have organized, because I had a fear of summer camp circa 1990, where I got picked on and I never wanted to go back, and I don't want to be stuck with these people. And I've always said no. So I went on this first, Anthony and I went to a 50th birthday, and it was in Los Cabos. And I was nervous. What if I don't like these people? What if they impede on my experience? What if they talk too much? What if they drink too much? What if they are not aware of themselves or others? And that was a huge fear for me. Now, thankfully, 6 out of the 8 people who were there didn't bother me. And the 2 people that did bother me bothered everybody, and they kind of went off and did their own thing. But it really got me thinking when I was looking at your group trips that there is a huge responsibility that you have. You're not responsible for people's behavior, but you're definitely responsible for attracting like-minded, compatible travelers. So we'll break it out. Let's do the marketing in general first. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm still working on and evolving. But marketing, currently it has been, or even in the past it has been, obviously to our current clients. We promote this to our current clients through our email newsletter that goes out once a month, and then also on our social media platforms. But what I found to also work is, where are the people that I want where are the people that I want on this retreat? Where are they at? So if I'm hosting a retreat that's centered around wellness and yoga, I want a yoga studio. My people are there.
Yeah.
So really targeting or promoting to the audience of where they're at. Here in Charlotte, there's a local magazine that's called, I think it's called Natural Awakening. And all they do is talk about health and wellness and exercise and all of that stuff. Being able to promote there. I know that my target audience, they're reading this paper. They're in there. So to be able to put advertisements or write articles or blog posts for that audience in that platform. So that has helped. And then when visiting local yoga studios or fitness centers is something that we're going to start to do more of going forward.
Oh, that's good. And I would imagine in the marketing of your actual trip that you've got somewhere, this is for you if, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. This is not for you if, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. I love the idea of fishing where your fish are. How did you start those conversations with those places? Is it paid advertising to start with, or is it a joint venture or collaboration? And how did you even kind of reach? Like, I did a coaching call this morning, and one of the questions from one of our members was, I can't even get the right person on the phone. So tell us about that.
I think, and that was a challenge, especially thinking back to when we had our Bali retreat. You know, I'm emailing, I'm calling to local yoga studios, and same thing, it's crickets.
Wow.
So what I found is to, one, do collaboration. So now I have my yoga instructor. She works at a yoga studio. So she already has access to that population or that target audience. So those collaborations help, but also joining in on that community or getting in front of that community. So for example, the yoga, wellness, and fitness community here, they host a variety of festivals. They host a meetup and networking groups. So attend those, introduce myself, share what I have going on. So it's more so just kind of educating people on who I am and what I'm doing, and not necessarily saying, hey, can you promote this for me? Or, hey, can you share this upcoming retreat? Kind of building relationships.
I think this is huge. And I want to stay on this for a minute because I feel like that a lot of travel advisors are transactional when it comes to this part of it, because you've gone from doing your numbers, figuring out your math, designing your itineraries, picking your suppliers, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I feel like then the next step is I've got to sell this. And they almost go into a panic of transactional stress where they're like, well, I've got to get X number of transactions. And they forget about creating those relationships and actual relationships, not like, hey, go, hey kind of situation, because people read right through that. So maybe for me, when I'm just thinking out loud, maybe it comes if people can smell the desperation, they can smell the fear, they can smell the sale coming, that they're more likely to back off. Can you dig a little deeper for us and tell us what did that, like, give us an example of a time where you've created a relationship from scratch? Like, did you pick up the phone? Did you show up to an event? What did you say? Like, maybe like the magazine, for example, the health and wellness magazine in your local area, because that would be something I think a lot of travel advisors are like, yes, I can identify the groups, the people, and the places, but I don't know how to show up.
Absolutely. For example, and I think you're totally right when you talk about transactional. And I was the transactional, reaching out to you, saying, hey, I have this upcoming retreat. I think your, customers would be interested. Would you mind sharing it? And they're like, absolutely not. I don't know who you are. This thing, I can't stand behind it. How I switched my approach is more so sharing information. These are the benefits of wellness travel. This is what a wellness focused retreat looks like. This is what to expect. This is who it's for. Oh, you're interested? It sounds like you. Well, I have a retreat coming up in August that I think you may be a good fit for. I think your audience may be a good fit for. So that's kind of what's helped me, is just really information sharing and educate. Honestly, a lot of folks just don't know what they don't know. So being able to educate people on what the experience looks like or what they can expect, I think start there.
How did you, with the yoga instructor, were you already taking classes at that studio, or did you just like pop up and be like, oh, you look good? How did you start that conversation, and how far into your relationship with that person did you say, hey, actually, there's an opportunity here?
It's actually my sister-in-law. So fortunately, and unfortunately, I already know her. We have a relationship, and we had this energy of, we're both interested in wellness. We both interested in travel. So that relationship kind of was already formed, and that was her expertise. This is my expertise. So we married the two, which was
But actually, that's a really good point that you raised. Yeah. And I think maybe a couple of listeners are going to be like, well, that's not helpful. That was her sister-in-law. But actually, it is helpful. Because it was Shanell's sister-in-law, it meant that there was a genuine, authentic relationship that was not transactional there already. So if the person that you as a listener are wanting to work with is not your sister-in-law, you've got to get the relationship to that point where it is authentic and it is genuine, that you can just call up and, that you can go and meet them for coffee, go down and take a yoga lesson. I would imagine, like I do, I'm never done yoga because I feel like it's way outside my skill set, but I do reformer Pilates. And so I would imagine that if I wanted to partner with the woman that owns my studio, she owns 3 studios in LA, taking a class is the very first genuine step. Because how are you going to just bust into somebody's office or email, mostly inbox, because I think a lot of travel advisors think they can do that from home in their pajamas, fastest way to get to the transaction. But actually, you've just made me realize, well, if I was wanting to work with my Pilates instructor, taking a class, showing up in person, showing up at the next opening of her next studio to cheer her on, sending her a card saying, hey, I just noticed that you opened at New Hall Ranch. Congrats. As a fellow business owner, I know that must have been hella hard. all the genuine things, genuine coming from a place of the heart, that you can do to establish a good relationship is going to make it easier. Because tell me, like, you've done that, you've had luck, luck is prepared and timing together, but you've had success with the magazine as well. So did you have a relationship there? Did you have to cold call? How did that one work?
Yeah, that was just reaching out to the publication department and saying, hey, can I just write a piece on wellness travel or women's wellness travel?
What can I promote my trip?
Right. Correct. So again, sharing information, and at the end, maybe, hey, Moonglade Travel offers these women's experiences. If you're interested in learning more, check out the website. So something that
literally a sentence at the bottom. The rest of it was sharing of expertise. And so did they let you write a piece for the magazine? Is that what happened? And it went into the magazine? Look how smart you are. Okay. I love this. And I think the takeaway for our listeners right now, if you're out walking and you can't take a note, remember that these are all genuine relationships, authentic relationships, because you cannot be transactional in your approach to groups. We talked about the elements that you include in your trips. Now let's talk about the suppliers. How did you figure out which suppliers to use? Was it driven by your host agency or consortia? Was it just somewhere that you've stayed before, or did you go on the hunt looking to match a supplier?
A combination. I would say typically it's just kind of going on a hunt. If I haven't been to the destination and I'm not super familiar with a specific resort, then it's kind of researching. If I'm looking for a wellness focused resort, someone who's offering a variety of services or programs that accompany what the focus of the retreat is. So kind of once I narrow that down, it's either reaching out to the resort directly, or with the couples in Cabo, it's an all-inclusive resort. So I typically will reach out to a supplier in that regard to formulate a group. So it looks a little bit different from our wellness retreats, but doing the research, doing the digging, or maybe it's been a property that I've been at before and definitely stand by. So I'm like, yes, this is it. I know they have great views. They have great amenities. This is exactly where we want to host it. And that's where we're going to be.
And you then, once you've decided on that it's the right supplier, you then go to work on contract and pricing and commission and those kinds of things. How did you learn to do that?
Trial and error.
Best teacher in the world she is. Error especially. Definitely
trial and error. But no, so reaching out, once we get everything, once I get the numbers, I'm a numbers person. So like right now for Costa Rica, we've gotten the resort information, all the numbers tallied up. We've gotten the transportation, all of our add-ons that we're going to add. And now I have a total bottom line of what is it going to cost to host this retreat. Plus any, the cost of, my services, the cost of my yoga services, all of those things go into that pot of bottom line. And then I figure it out. How many people do we need? How many people do we want? And here's how I price the retreat.
Good. Do you know what percentage of your revenue is generated from your groups as opposed to the rest of your clients? Like, is it like a 20% is your groups or 80% is your groups?
I don't know the exact number, but I will say that groups are definitely more lucrative than my individuals. However, since we haven't had many recently, my individual clients have definitely exceeded our revenue on that side of things, but groups definitely have way more potential. My goal is 4 a year. I'd love to do 1 a quarter. Right now we have 3 for 2023. I think I'll be okay.
Pretty good. That's 75% to your goal. That's pretty good. If you could choose between doing groups and individuals or just groups, what would you prefer?
Oh, I love my individual clients. I do. I would say my groups. I would definitely say my groups, just because with them being escorted, I'm on the retreats. I'm in it. I'm able to interact one-on-one with my clients that are on the retreat. I'm able to have and sharing those experiences with them. So it's a little more personal to me than planning a honeymoon. Those are great. I love those experiences as well.
But you can go on people's honeymoons. That's creepy. I'd imagine though that they kind of go hand in hand though, because when you have individuals, they become part of your email. they're your warm leads for your group. And the same thing when you have groups and people join that group, they can become individual clients. So I'd imagine that you'd never really need to choose, that they both fuel each other. Can you tell us, share with us, how do you encourage people who are signed up to bring others? Do you actually create, content that they can share? Do you write out an email? Do you just give them a link, or do you just tell them word of mouth? Like, how do you encourage people? Because obviously the easiest way to fill a group is by people inviting people, but it's only easy if your people know how to share that. So what have you been doing, or what would you like to do there?
Especially for our women's retreats, we promote them as obviously double occupancy. And we say, bring your bestie. I have mother and daughters coming. I have sisters coming. I have best friends coming. I have clients that are solo and really kind of want to just dabble in the solo travel, but don't feel completely comfortable of completely traveling solo. So this is an opportunity to join one of the retreats. But when we promote it as double occupancy, either you're going to bring a friend and you know who your roommate is, or you're going to mystery roommate.
Yeah.
Is what's going to happen. So actually last year, I wanted to say we offered a promo. Like if you registered, you may get a percentage or a dollar amount off of the second registration fee, just to promote or encourage for folks to bring a friend. But it's been fairly successful. I would say the retreat, we actually leave for Tulum on Thursday. And that one, there's only one person that's truly coming solo. Everyone else is paired with bringing someone else.
Wow. So would you say then that with the exception of that one person, you had half of the group and they brought someone else, which doubled the group?
Absolutely.
No, that's smart, girl. And those people might turn out to be individual clients of yours as well. Actually, I can't imagine them not becoming individual clients, especially because you're traveling with them. What advice do you have for the travel advisor who is desperate to do a group, an escorted group, and doesn't really know where to start, or maybe fear is holding them back?
Yeah. I would say find out what your specialty is. I think what makes it, I dare not say easy, but what easier for me is, again, this is something that I'm passionate about. I'm not hosting a bird watching retreat. I know nothing about bird watching. This is something I know the benefits of travel and wellness, and it's very intentional about the experiences that I create, which makes me pour more into it. So it makes it easier for me. I'll say easier for me. So I would say find your specialty or your niche and what you want the group to look like. Planning and timing. If you're looking to host a retreat in October, you're late. January is not the time.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about this.
Yeah, January is not the time to get started. And I learned that, again, lesson learned last year. Woke up in January, it was full of energy. I said, let's host a retreat in May, and literally put it out maybe February 1st, which I think was not enough time. It wasn't enough time to allow us to promote. It wasn't enough time to allow us to plan and fill up those spots, which is why we ended up pushing the retreat date back. So I would definitely say.
What is the perfect amount of time?
I would say at least 10 months.
Oh.
Yeah, I would definitely say 10 months, because again, it takes time to identify the destination, identify the resort, put all the components together. That's just one phase. Then it's another phase of marketing. Then it's a whole other phase of, filling these last minute spots. And then you jump into the trip management services. I'm still in communication with the clients that are attending the retreat. Like, it's a whole process, and there's so many steps along the way. And you want to be able to allow yourself time. This is not the only thing we're doing. Some of us, I'm not just older.
Right. So is it 10 months including the planning, or 10 months of marketing?
I would say including the planning.
Okay. What's the ideal duration of marketing a trip of like 15 to 20 participants?
I would say 6 months, 6 to 8 months, because again, depending on the price point and who you're targeting, you want to sometimes allow people payment options. I think that was one of the things that attracted a lot of our clients is you can pay a deposit and then you can pay on it. But if you're hosting a retreat in October, most suppliers you have to have paid off about 60 days prior. So you look at August. So if you start now, you're only giving people a few months to actually pay on and plan for. for the group trip.
How do you feel about having trips on your calendar for 2024 already? We're in January 2023, knowing that payment plans, payment flexibility is one of the biggest drivers, because the biggest challenges is being able to afford the trip or feeling like you can afford it. Knowing that payment plans is the solution, how comfortable are you having trips that far out? Or would you recommend not having trips that far out for travel advisors?
We're actually looking at early 2024 for getting some trips on the calendar. I tried to squeeze one more in at the end of this year, but I think I've got enough on my plate. So we're going to push that over to early of next year. I probably wouldn't look at anything after summer for next year. People get excited. You want to kind of keep the momentum. And if I have to wait a whole year and a half, you may start to lose some folks.
Yeah. I think also there's a benefit of having more than one trip available on your website, even if it's just the date and you're not open for bookings, but having that choice between, is it this trip or that trip, not can I go or not?
I agree. And that's where it's kind of worked for us too. Once we sold out of the of the January retreat, we've been saying, hey, if you miss this one, the next one is in August. And we already have probably over 20 people who have expressed interest. And I haven't even opened registration yet for Costa Rica. So building momentum and then having an alternative. Well, if you can't get this one, here's the next one or two or three, even if it's just getting interest. And that's another thing, Sandra, I'll mention. We have done before we promoted this last retreat is building that excitement and that interest before we actually announce registration. To say, hey, coming on, March 1st, we're going to open registration for this retreat. So giving some teasers and some spoilers to get people excited and interested. And then once you actually release it or announce it, you already have a list of folks who have said, yes, this is something that I want, so that you're not just to the world of people who may or may not be interested.
Yeah, I think that's a huge lesson that you learned. It's definitely one that I've learned in my business. Like when we open membership or we open one of our courses or something like that, we never just open it. Our promotion starts at least 2 months out before you can even sign up for anything, probably to the annoyance of a bunch of people. But we're really just talking about it. Like we talked about our conference in San Juan this April. We've been talking about it since, I don't know, like 2 years ago. Well, the pandemic didn't help, but we've been talking about it for 3 months now. Next year, April, next year, April, next year, April, because there is an element of budgeting required. There's an element of managing your PTO from work if you have a job, or who's going to watch the kids, So I definitely love that that's a lesson that you've learned. I wonder if you start to, when you start to have 30, 40 people requesting to come on these women's wellness trips, do you think that you would ever make your group size bigger, or would you like to maintain it and perhaps do like a back-to-back where, you have one group of clients fly in and then you stay for the second group? Or do you see yourself changing your product to accommodate more business? Because you're just going to keep getting bigger.
Yeah, I received that.
I'll send it to you. Receive it.
Thank you. I don't know. It's really something about the smaller group of intimate experience. I can't see 30, 40. But I do love the idea of having back-to-back. So we still get the same experience. We still get the same beautiful destination, but we're still keeping this small and intimate group experience together. So we would probably do something like that when we get to that.
Yes, ma'am, because it's on its way. And I definitely encourage for anyone listening who wants to look at the smaller group but thinks, gosh, that might not be as lucrative as I want it to be, to consider that if you feel like 60 is a great number or 100 is a great number, then go ahead and do yourself 5 back-to-backs or 4 back-to-backs and stay in location. In fact, it probably reduces a lot of your costs. But start with 1 and then add your second. I have loved every nugget that you have dropped today. Tell me, before we wrap, what are your goals for your business? I know you want to have 4 trips, but do you have destination goals? Do you have themed trip goals? Do you foresee having 40 couples that make it their annual? I'm always going with Moonglade. I'm always going with these folks. What are your goals in your business?
Yeah, definitely my retreat. I want to have at least one a quarter is definitely a goal for this year. But also just a personal and business goal is just the exposure, being more exposed to my local community as the subject matter expert when it comes to travel. And I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like, but putting out there is one of the goals that I think will, one, help on the professional side, but then also on the business side to grow and be known as that go-to person when you're thinking about any of our areas of specialty. So I would say those two. I think we're pretty steady with the individual trips, but focusing on our group trips and then growing our team is one of the goals for this year.
Oh, nice. What about destinations?
I need to get back to, I was just in Europe last year, but we're looking to expand our women's wellness journeys back to Europe. So I'm looking at Portugal and Spain next year, up to this year, but definitely next year.
That's amazing. I want travel advisors to check out your website, but I'm going to make a rule before I let anybody know what your website is. And this is the rule. If you would like to see what Shanell has done, I'm going to let her give you the website in a minute, but here's the rule. Do not sign up for her lead magnet. Do not follow her on social media. And I will tell you why. I don't want Shanell to end up with an email list full of travel advisors and to then start questioning her open rates and her click rates because you'll want to see what her lead magnet is. If you have a question for Shanell, ask her directly. Don't go snooping, but go check out her website, have a look at it to inspire you in your travel business. But please don't sign up for her lead magnet. Please do not follow her on social media. And just know that if it was you listening that I had on my podcast as a guest, I would want the same for you. I want her email list to be full of the tip people that she wants to work with and that want to do her trips. If you legit want to go on one of her women's wellness trips, then go ahead and sign up and drop her an email and say, hey, you might notice to be a travel advisor on your list. It's because I actually want to come, or my husband and I do want to come on one of your trips, but please be kind and go check it out and leave. Shanell, what is your website?
Yes, absolutely. It is moongladetravel.com. So that's www.moongladetravel.com.
And just go by, look, and leave. Shanell's never going to say that to you, but I think it's really important that is in the travel industry that we support each other without messing with each other's analytics. So go ahead and have a look at her site. And thank you so much for sharing. I know that there are people who listened today that are like, okay, I want to do this, but I need to do it the right way. And you definitely have done it the right way. And I'm not going to lie, don't be surprised if you get a Mr. and Mrs. Macklemore A&S traveling on your manifest. We do not, maybe you could be a good friend and tell me, Sandra, you do not need to be coming to Cabo. I know this one on our next one, but who knows? It's only 2 hours flight away, so maybe we will. Thank you, my friend, for coming on here. I would love to have you back on another day to talk about how you smashed your next goals and why you've got bigger ones than that as you grow your business, bring on teams, do more trips, inspire more people. But I just want to say a sincere thank you on behalf of the entire travel advisor community for sharing today.
Thank you, Sandra. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. Okay. And